All right. Hello, everybody. Happy Friday.
Uh,
Welcome to this week's edition of Green Books Exchange. Hello, Karen.
Hey, Lenny.
We'll just warn you, Karen, if you look at her background, she's on vacation.
It's true.
And
It's true.
yeah, broadcasting live from New Hampshire, right?
Yeah, the White Mountains. I'm kind of right in it. I'm in a condo. I'm not camping, although I think almost everybody else is around here. So it's beautiful up here, but really quite remote. It's something.
Yeah, well, I know about remote. Welcome to my world. But
Exactly.
and guys, I'm sorry, I have been fighting some bug all week. So if I'm not my normal enthusiastic, ebullient self. Apologies, I'm just kind of holding it together. So, but enough with all that. We're glad that you're here and we're glad to be together. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. And we're going to kick things off talking just a little bit of talking fun and vacation. And sharing a little bit that I had found actually a really good friend of mine, Michelle Onofrio is her name. She was a former client of mine. She shared in her LinkedIn feed a survey, some survey results conducted by White Claw, the brand, about vacations. They used the intel to inform their latest campaign. But in sharing some of the news around the campaign, which was Claw Back Your Summer, what they found out is, and what they shared publicly, which is why I got really excited about it, is 54% of employed U.S. consumers haven't planned a summer vacation this year. 54%. Come on, dudes, that's half of us haven't taken summer vacation yet or even planned a summer vacation. It's the end of August. Anyway, I think that's it. That's just makes me, say, And then also for those that do go on vacation, 56 do not completely unplug from work. So I read that and I'm like, oh, phew, since I am sitting here recording live from my condo, while my family is around doing vacation-ish things, just kind of, putting pause on me being a part of it. So I don't know. Here's why I thought that was interesting. First of all, vacation stats are really interesting. Second of all, I love brands sharing intel from their work because there's something really interesting and fascinating about consumer behavior. And when we as consumers learn about consumer behavior or learn some of these stats, anyway, I don't know if you liked it as much as I did, Lenny, but that's why I got so excited about that study.
oh, I'm a data junkie, so yeah, I mean, I love that type of stuff too, and it is cool when brands share that in a so like the White Claw, like obviously it's kind of self-serving, right? But they turned it
Absolutely.
into a clever marketing campaign, and that is interesting. There's probably all types of places we could go with the broader implications of that. Because I'm one, we haven't gone on summer vacation. There's not a plan for one this year, and we've just kind of accepted that that's just the way it's going to be this year. And unplugging is not something I do well, one way or the other. So, are we a nation of workaholics? Well, probably.
Probably. At least 50% of us seem to be,
Were there any
perhaps.
generational differences? Do you see anything in the
I didn't.
demographics?
They didn't share the whole study. They just shared what the PR team decided was like, the shareable snippets. So I'm sure they do have generational intel on that. I would love to know what that is. And so, my call to action for all the brands out there is share this stuff because there are research geeks out there like Lenny and myself that love to know this stuff. Because I think it's helpful if you find out kind of like a trend that's going on in a different category, like it just makes you curious and what's the next question that comes up like you just shared. And that's what I think makes us good researchers, right? Is thinking about the next set of questions that you want to ask when you see the statistics.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, brands, please.
Yeah. Brands, do more.
Share it, or anybody
Yeah.
doing, public policy polling, or yes,
Yeah.
feed
I
us
know.
more, feed
I
the
know.
beast.
More. Well, that's what, and like one of the other notes I had made was Starbucks announced their, quarterly results and they shared a statistic also. It's published, I think CNN caught it and ABC News picked it up. And then a lot of those articles referenced a Mintel study talking about Starbucks said that cold beverages made up 75% of U.S. beverage sales last quarter. So 75% are cold. And that we know through those sources is that's really heavily being led by Gen Z. So again, going back to kind of generational intel and interesting intel, yeah, Gen Z is changing things. And if we're not doing, if brands aren't doing that Gen Z research, like everybody needs to know their behavior is very different from, certainly from Gen X, certainly from millennials. It's different. I mean, I still have hot coffee even if I'm on a beach in the morning. Like I won't break that habit. I can't. I like an iced coffee sometimes, but I behave very different. So anyway, I just think that's a stat that also caught my mind, because when you see stats that are different from your behavior, again, it just makes you go, well, that's interesting. We need to pay attention.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm a hot coffee morning drinker, but I'm an iced coffee afternoon, evening drinker.
Yeah.
So,
you cut out there for me for a minute. So say it again right before you said iced coffee.
So I'm a hot coffee morning hot coffee drinker, afternoon, evening iced coffee drinker. So so I'm a hybrid, I guess.
You are a
hybrid.
So yeah, so that to me that just brings up this question of self-identification in the numbers, and how we do want to see ourselves in what we're learning, also in what we're hearing, and I think that's becomes fodder. I've been like noodling on this all morning, obviously, because I've been thinking about this. Like, it becomes fodder for kind of what are the key insights there? Like, what are we learning that's really interesting in these numbers? And I don't know if you've had any other thoughts since I posed this question. Like, why do we like this kind of information so much? Why do we like to see ourselves in the number or not see ourselves in the number? What do you think?
Well, I love that point of see ourselves in the number. I mean, ultimately, isn't that as researchers, it's not about the data, it's about the story in the data, right? And that story ultimately is about people.
Yeah.
So whether it's B2B or consumer, the data is to identify people, because we're the ones, we are the activators, right? We're the ones that are driving, decisions and behaviors that all of this is based on, and we're not immune to that as researchers.
Yeah.
So I do think that's maybe kind of a primal urge.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, inherently.
At least.
Yeah. Well, so it's funny. My kids ask me, Dad, what do you do for a living? And I can go into all this stuff, but ultimately I say I help people. That's my job.
Yeah.
Is to help people, and it's to help people understand people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that is at the core something as a profession that we need to embrace. It's that curiosity, and we help foster and forge human connections.
Yeah.
And information is what we use to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So at least altruistically, or at the kind of, maybe that's not the right word, but at the highest level, that's what we aspire to.
Yeah.
But I think that it's an important component.
Yeah, I used to say something similar when I was executing qual. I'd say, if somebody who didn't really understand what I did at all asked me, I'd say, well, I ask people questions, I listen really closely to their answers, and then I explain them to other people that really need to know those people better. So like, there's this aspect of like taking the knowledge that we get and then transferring it to somebody else. That's why storytelling is so important. Anyway, we're preaching to the choir with this
we are, but that's all right. We don't talk that often about kind of this. That why do we do what we do?
Why do we do?
I think that's what we're touching on.
Yeah.
So
let's segue into how we do what we do. Haha, it's a segue for you, because there was some breaking news about Zoom this past week, which I think is largely how many of us do work, maybe not every day in your organization, but certainly for certain meetings. And it certainly became the way of the world a few years ago to have video calls in general. But here's what we heard. So we heard that, couple things. We heard that Zoom had put out their change kind of terms of service, and then Zoom got a lot of pushback for their terms of service. And so there's been a few different iterations of this. But the bottom line is they said that Zoom reserved the right to train AI on our calls without explicit permission. Now, they have since dialed it back a little bit or explained it better, saying that you could opt out, but that's not been made very clear. So there's controversy around this. And anyway, I think you're the one who saw this first. So why don't you just talk a little bit more about what you saw, and then we'll all just say, that's not okay.
Yeah. Well, and shout out to Finn Rabin. Finn posted that originally when I saw it, and my reaction was much the same as Finn's of like, no, that's not okay.
not
What
okay.
the hell? So,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so thank you, Finn, for pointing that out. And that was one of one little segue, right? This was actually these terms of service. It was modified in March.
Yeah. Interesting.
This was not some new thing. They slid this under the radar.
Yeah.
And then some
Yeah.
hackers
Figured
got
it out.
onto it.
Yeah.
Right. And they're the ones who kind of blew the whistle. So that was really interesting. So
Yeah.
look, data's oil.
Yeah.
AI is the refinery.
Yeah.
I absolutely get companies wanting to leverage that. Actually, there was an article that I shared in our link right before we went live, from Wired Magazine, that was kind of talking about this gold rush.
Sorry.
It's all right. The live without a net. So
In the silence in New Hampshire, when there's a noise, my dog is like, don't know what that is, and I'm on it.
no worries, totally got it. We're in it. That's always been the case. We're in another era of that now.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that for a while, that the data as an asset is only increasing in importance.
Yeah.
And companies are going to try and monetize that asset in one form or fashion, and certainly the training sets is a piece of it. Now, I think the real issue here is around ethical
Yeah.
use. So Zoom,
Yeah.
you shouldn't have tried to pull that shit of doing it,
Right.
just disclose,
Right.
and give people an explicit opt-in or opt-out. And
Yeah.
sorry for my cursing, but
Yeah.
it's like, come on, that's we get it, but we need to be ethical and transparent about these things and give people choice.
Well, and I think it just also, for me, it called to mind how many times I pull up the terms of service and just say, yeah, and click OK to move on quickly, because I trust the intentions of the organization. And as soon as I saw this, I was like, wait, what? Like
Right.
that I don't consent to that. And that is a problem that I think a lot of us have to change our behaviors. And we hate to do that, right? We don't want to be cynical, suspicious humans. That's not a fun way to live. That's not what we want in life, is that level of skepticism with entities that we believe have our best interests at heart. But something like this right now is very unnerving, I think, for that reason.
It is, well, and it brings up interesting questions of, okay, I'm invited to a Zoom meeting by somebody else,
Right?
what have they opted in or not opted in?
Yeah.
And we're kind of bound by whatever choices or decisions the account holders have made. I mean, there's really a lot of interesting implications to this, and I think that so here's the research piece, right?
Yeah.
In our world, if you're utilizing, there are companies that utilize Zoom as part of their online focus group platforms,
Yeah.
or within communities, because
Yeah.
it's easy. And we have to do our due diligence to understand what those things are like,
Yeah.
and what's been permissioned or not permissioned, and give consumers a choice.
Yeah.
And we have to factor that in.
Yeah.
We cannot blindly assume that we know what somebody's choice is because we think this
Yeah.
is the right choice to make.
Yeah.
So there's, I'm glad this happened.
Yeah.
It brings up an important point, and there's going to be a lot of more work to be done in going through this.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the individual choice of ad blockers, right? I mean, at some point, there's got to be a
ad
technology
blockers,
kind of
yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
right? Where an individual has a solution that interfaces with all these various platforms,
Right.
and allows them to control what's being permissioned or not
Right.
permissioned. Hey,
Right.
a great product idea. Anybody who's listening.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how to build it, but somebody needs
Yeah.
to.
Well, and also, I just think it's, let's just throw out there that I have empathy for all of us as professionals right now, because it's like there's so much thinking we need to do in this like great game of chess that is AI right now. Like we just have to think about so many nuances that we're not used to thinking through and thinking about, and we can't take for granted a partner that we've used in the past, whether it's, you know, for video technology or for online focus groups and communities. Like we just can't take for granted that they, again, not being malicious, but aren't doing what they need to do in this world of, you know, large language models and all of that, you know, that they're doing what they need to do. And it's also serving our best interests as well, too. We have to just scrutinize everything. It's going to be a tiring 6 months. Yeah, tiring. 6 months is all I'm giving it, apparently.
Well, at the rate it's going,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. We'll have it all figured out. But I guess in my head, November, you know, the end of November is when, you know, generative AI became, you know, the hot topic because of ChatGPT. And I guess I keep feeling like by the end of November, we'll have so much sorted. So I don't know. Maybe we won't.
I don't know. I mean, these are the things that we talked about before. This is when this is the role of government.
Yeah.
And so those things don't happen quickly.
Yeah.
The self-regulation doesn't happen quickly. So I would love to think that we're there, but I suspect that, you know, we're probably years out from figuring these things out. In the meantime,
we have other governing bodies, right, doing things to help us out in some way, shape, or form. So topic 3 for today, folks, is this improved effort to improved data quality. And what I mean by improved in that case is combining forces to tackle all of these data quality issues that we've been talking about for a long time in our industry. So, and I can let you, you know, share some more details, Lenny, if you know, but from the Market Research Institute International's blog, Melanie Courtwright and Cindy Newman. So Melanie, who's the CEO of the Insights Association right now, and Cindy Newman, who's a research director at the Insights Association, shared something that's been in the works since March, actually, which I didn't really know about until you shared this particular piece with me. So all of these associations joining together, the Insights Association, SMR, the Market Research Society, the Research Society, the Canadian Research Insights Council, did I say that right? Association of Market Research Austria, and then SampleCon also for good measure, because that was fun to read in that list for sure. So they've all come together. So talk to me about what you knew about this and what they're doing, because we've been talking about data quality for so long, and I love that these organizations and associations are coming together, because I think that's going to be some progress.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're trying to find a way to create kind of global standards, defining and measuring quality, detecting fraud, identifying and mitigating bias, and improving the research participant experience. That's kind of their purview.
Yeah.
To focus on those topics.
Yeah.
So that's great that they're doing, because I'll tell you what I am hearing right now is that the sample quality crisis, it is a full-blown crisis. I was on a call with a major CPG company last week that said that they are throwing away as much as 70% of their sample. And that they are actually putting all of their suppliers on quality contracts.
Interesting.
It's only getting worse. And I'll mention, you know, from our own experience recently with Grit.
Yes.
You know, we'll talk more about this as we go, but there were over 600 AI completes.
Yep, I know.
Now,
it was so disheartening. I know.
Yeah, well, we won't get into why.
Yeah.
I mean, but the point was they were the only way that we identified them really is because the open ends were too good.
Yeah.
So now there are other flags too, but we won't get into that another
At least
day.
not yet. At least not yet. We'll get there.
Right, but I'm hearing from sample companies as well that you know the level of fraud that they are seeing, especially from kind of, you know, from River and those sources, is immense, and generative AI is only making it worse. The ability to scale is just out of this world. Now, you know, that's so hence the efforts to lean into, well, what about, you know, virtual respondents and those type of things, and I think those are all interesting topics. To this point,
Yeah.
right, this is a crisis for the industry. It's been a crisis for a while.
Yeah.
It was bad already. Generative AI has made it worse. It is. There's 101 reasons why we got here.
Yeah.
But here we are,
Right.
and I consider it kind of an existential threat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Brands are not going to pay for research
Right.
if the data is bullshit. And
Right.
unfortunately, in many studies right now,
Yeah.
the data is bullshit,
Yeah. Yeah.
or at least a component of it is.
Yeah.
And we have to get a handle on it. So hats off to these organizations. They're the right ones to lead the charge on that.
Yeah, yeah.
Ultimately, it's going to come down, though, to us as individual research organizations and practitioners on ensuring, again, just like with the Zoom thing, you have to
Right.
do our own due diligence.
Yeah, we do.
right?
We do.
We have to have our own best practices, and
Yeah.
we have to make sure that we're doing that. One more interesting point, it's not just quant. So
Right.
this same CPG company said that they are so concerned about fraudulent video and images
Yeah.
that they are considering going back to doing all their qualitative face-to-face.
Yeah. 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 Well, face-to-face MRX, those folks are onto something.
Yeah, well, yes, it
Yeah.
validates
Yeah.
identity. They know you're talking to a
Yeah.
real person. Yada yada, and you're not generating, images utilizing
Yeah.
generative AI. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
so
know all
it's-
that
it's a
digital,
big
all
deal.
that digital ethnography, and that I've been a big part of that. Like that's really unnerving because we have trusted people to upload things that are the real things, and we've certainly seen, cheating in that industry as well, in that section of the industry as well, with repeat respondents who lie about who they are just to get into the study, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, data quality, qual and quant, it's all over the place. So, stay tuned on that. So, that's probably all the time we have for today. But, shout out to this organization. You can learn more. I'm shouting that part out right now. www.globaldataquality.org. You can learn more about the combined efforts of all these organizations. And they have a webinar coming up on data quality August 30th at 8 a.m. Central. So that would be, I think, a pretty interesting webinar for all of us in the industry to be on, just to kind of hear what they're doing and stay abreast of that. And we can certainly, if you can't make it, maybe the week after that, we can talk about some of the things that they covered, because I think both you and I will probably be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap up. So let you go get on with your vacation.
Yeah.
Everybody else get on with the rest of your day, and I'm going to go take a nap.
Way to power through.
I did. It was really like, I just got to get through the exchange.
You're going to be great. You're going to be great. I'm going to go out into the woods or something like that and try to see what else is happening here. So
right.
Anyway, I'll talk to you all soon. Good to talk to you again, Lenny, of course. Thanks, everybody.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.